Hello and welcome to the Sunday morning talk live from Newbury Monastery, close to Melbourne. 9:03 a.m. For those who haven't had the pleasure, my name is Cittapalo. And I come from Bodhinyana Monastery, which is in Perth. And I'm the one who is supposed to give the talk today for you. And I have a little sign here that tells me that I should remind people that they will be able to ask questions on the YouTube live chat. So if questions come up, you can put your questions there. Well, that's it so far. My last talk was probably one of the most political talks I gave so far in my career, or whatever you want to call it. And I got a little bit of flack for that, because people have very strong perceptions what a Buddhist monk is supposed to talk about, supposed to talk about the Buddhist teaching or whatnot. And there were some comments who were of the opinion that I had failed in that regard. And you're obviously entitled to your opinions, and I personally think if I get a little bit of flack and a few thumbs down, for me that's a sign that my talk was at least not that boring that you fell asleep, which is a good sign. Like always, I don't intend to offend you, and I'm not an authority. I just represent my own views and opinions. And if I stir up anything again, then please don't punish the whole Sangha here. We're 10 people and more, 10 monastics and lay people who support us. So please don't cut off our funds because I say something wrong. Don't make the other people suffer, because there was a comment actually that somebody who said who is a supporter of the monastery, I don't know if he spoke truth, it's all this anonymous stuff over the internet. And there wasn't a picture and there wasn't a real name, but basically he said he was a supporter, and he wanted to cut us off because he disagreed so much with what I had to say last time. So I only speak for myself, just make that very clear again. And last time, because it was one of my most political talks, because I think I live in a time now after 20 years of no major political changes in the world, or that nothing that really affected me in my monastic life so far. Now I find myself living in a time where there are changes that do affect the monastic life. And I think that has some benefit then as well to speak about that and speak up about how we interact with the world. How much do we try to change our own minds through the practice, and how much are we concerned with how we interact with the world outside. And so last time maybe it was a bit heavy on the side of the worldly concerns. I try today to lean more on the side of the of the inner workings of the mind, and that's I want to talk about perception and how perception comes into being. What is perception? How perception is changed, and obviously how perception is changed in a way that is conducive to our practice and conducive to the what the Buddha aimed for, and which is obviously always the liberation of the mind from suffering. That was the one and only goal that the Buddha tried to achieve, to find a way out of suffering. I think it's important to stay a little bit still in the world of the outside and science, the observable, the measurable, because I myself have a very scientific approach, or very, I don't know, at least I see it for myself as a scientific approach to how I apply the Buddhist practice and how I deal with the concepts that the Buddha presents us in my own mind. And often people say Buddhism is a religion or Buddhism is a philosophy, and for me it's neither this or that. A religion would be just a belief in something, which is basically can only be evaluated after you die. And if it was just a philosophy, then it would be just intellectual concepts that have to be set up according to rules of logic. But there's this moment of experience is not there. So the Buddhist teaching for me never was a religion or philosophy. It was always a practical way to go into a certain direction, and the direction the Buddha was interested in was by coincidence also the direction I'm interested in, how to get rid of suffering, actually. What is suffering? How to accumulate suffering? How to reduce suffering? And in his explanations, I think the Buddha was as scientific as you can be with speech and with this. We have to see in normal science we have a controlled environment. Science loves a controlled environment where or you can add all these little factors and then you can make predictions of the outcome. And the mind is what is called a complex system. So there's very many factors in the mind that are makes it very hard to predict the outcome. This is why psychology and the science of the minds that we have in the West, they have huge difficulties on predicting behavior of people, because it's just so many factors, genetics, the environment, moods, maybe what you ate that morning actually come into a factor how you're gonna behave that day, or in that particular moment. So what I always find fascinating in science is the you cannot just say this is the way it is and you have to believe me. In science, you make predictions, and your predictions have to be evaluated, and they have to be other people have to be able to repeat them that you can even call it science. Otherwise, it's religion again. It's just a belief. And we live in an age now where our science is so incredibly advanced, but the actual belief in science in many areas of societies and in society and in many countries is actually dropping. There are really weird beliefs coming up again, and a very strong criticism and non-belief in science. And some of that is obviously has its foundation and its reasons and its grounds, because science has trouble in these complex systems to make predictions as well. If you look at the weather, for example, how accurate can they predict the weather with all their satellites and their measurement apparatuses? And they only get it right for, if you're lucky, for a few days, and then it becomes unpredictable again, the weather. That's a complex system. But on the other hand, they have an idea when the next hurricane is coming, and they can warn people. And that doesn't mean everything is wrong. And I like to give you just one beautiful example for me of science. Nobody knew in the old days how to define gravity. What is it that pulls objects down to the ground? Why do they not float up in the air when you drop something? And then Isaac Newton, he not just developed a theory of that, he also basically developed the mathematics to calculate. And that's where calculate comes from calculus, actually. That's what he invented as well. And he, with his method, he predicted the motions of objects. And it's basically defined gravity as two objects influencing each other. And because of that, and we can say, oh, what is that supposed to mean? How does it affect anything? And then the astronomers, they looked up in the sky, and then I think around Saturn, they watched Saturn, the planet, the gas giant, and they saw a strange wobble taking effect there. There was a motion there in the path the planet took that didn't make any sense, and that was contrary to the predictions and to the mathematics that you can apply the Newton's mechanics. They didn't seem to apply it completely. So, and instead of disregarding the whole thing, they said what Newton's mechanic tells us here, that there must be another object there that pulls on Saturn to make Saturn move in that direction. And then years later, when the telescopes were improved again, they found Uranus, another gas giant that wasn't visible with the optics they had available at the time. Just by this mathematical predictions and of that formula that Newton created, watching the sky, they could predict that must be that other object in the sky, and yes, there it was. And that is science. Science on a big scale. On a simple scale with simpler things. You know, if you mix sulfur and saltpeter and charcoal in the right measurements, you get gunpowder, and you get it every time, and it's gonna make bang when you apply a heat source to it. That is science. It is repeatable. Something that is not just the will of the gods anymore, some mystical power in the background. There was people began to understand there are natural forces at play here, and these forces, they can be understood. And in the same way, I like to think of the Buddha's teachings. That there are forces in play. How do we define perception? How do we define the mind? In science, we have the four major forces in nature. So we have gravity and electromagnetism and the weak and strong nuclear forces. And in Buddhism, we have this what we call the five khandhas. And the five khandhas, they cannot be separated the same as we call it electromagnetism these days, because the scientists realize actually the flow of electricity and magnetism cannot be separated. As basically, it can be defined as one and the same force, because they always appear together. One cannot appear without the other. Same as Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. There is time and space. They cannot be separated. It has to be seen as one unit, and that is a very well proven theory as well. And so the same for the five khandhas. So where you see the body, the feeling, perception, thought or will, and vijnana, consciousness. I don't like it. I like it to call it the force, that is always trying to get something out there. The vijnana, this driving force. They cannot be separated. In a human being, you cannot have one without the other. If you describe a human being, if you describe consciousness, that is a way you can scientifically describe it. There's a body. In this body, there's thoughts. There is perception in that body. You perceive things coming in. And then there's will, there's feeling. And then there is this drive in the background. Maybe call it preferences or whatever you want to call it. And the interesting thing is the Buddha's language the language at the time of the Buddha was in a sense scientifically better equipped to explain what the Buddha was talking about. In the Pali, there exists terminology which is very hard to translate into English. And sometimes, if you ever read a sutta and you read something, and then at the end you read, and the people were delighted and they rejoiced and happy, they went away, blah blah blah. And you just think, how is that possible? I didn't understand. I hardly understood a word. I was talking. What was he even talking about? I don't understand. How is it that these villagers 2,500 years ago in India basically could understand what the Buddha was talking about? And that is that the terminology was much more interested in these mind processes already in India at that time. And for example, in the Pali, there, if you describe an eye, like the five senses, the eye and ear and nose and tongue and body, you have different words. If you talk of the physical eye, then they have a word for that. But if you call if you call upon that is aware of that process of seeing, they have a different word for that. We don't even have that in English, and in German we don't have that either. There's basically no distinction there. So the process, how consciousness works, is with all the science that we have, is still very limited. Because a lot of people, they think because they have an eye, they see a world out there, a sort of a neutral, like you take a picture with a camera. That is not how our perception works. I mean, apart from the difficult science that goes on in this optical process, and just 2 points is that the picture comes into your vision the wrong way around. So basically everything is standing on its head. When I look at my helpers here in the hall, actually, if my brain wouldn't do its job, they were basically sitting upside down. they would be on their heads. And then this visual image gets translated into electromagnetic impulses, and they get sent to a center, to a part of the brain which is specialized in deciphering these electromagnetic impulses again and producing sight in my brain. So a very intricate, difficult process that seems to be so natural because it's so incredibly fast. What the brain manages to do there in each and every second. You shift your view just the slightest little bit, and the brain has to use this immense processing power actually to give us that illusion of that stable environment wherever we are. And with sound, it's the same thing. Is a process that through the movement of air has to be translated again through electromagnetic impulses to the brain and gets deciphers in the brain again. So that all comes together in the brain, but not as any neutral information. That is where that difference in Buddhism kicks in. It's not just an eye and it falls on that tabula rasa, on that empty slate and projects an image there. No. Is this eye consciousness, if you want to give it a name, this wanting to see. This wanting to see produces that image that it expects to see already, according to our conditioning. So this perception that we sometimes think is so neutral is not that at all. This is I remember that story from Ricky Gervais, the comedian, and I think he caught that flight just after 9/11. Shortly after 9/11, so everybody was still in a panic about new terrorist attacks, and the controls at the airports were getting really strict, and nobody dared actually to fly, or hardly anybody dared to fly. The flights were actually quite empty. But he thought to himself, well, now after the attacks, the security is so tight, so the chances are very good for me that nothing is going to happen, because they take a lot better care now that nobody comes onto a plane with a bomb or trying to take over the cockpit or whatever. So he sat down, and then somebody, and what you have to see, Ricky Gervais is more on the lefty side of things, so he's would consider himself a liberal and open-minded and not full of prejudice. But then that man came onto the plane with an who looked a little bit in a way that we associate Arabs or Middle Easterners are looking. So I think he had even a turban on, and he had the beard, and Ricky Gervais said basically he could feel himself looking over to that guy, and with all his liberal thoughts that he thought to have in his mind, his liberal upbringing and perception, his mind started to go in the direction of, well, I hope they checked him properly. He sort of looks like he looks like somebody basically who you saw on these pictures of Mohammed Atta and all these guys who hijacked the plane and flew them into the World Trade Center. And he said there was this two sides in his brain, and one side fighting against the other side, his liberal upbringing side fighting more and more, and losing that fight to that to the fear side, who said, "But look at the beard, really, the beard and the turban," and then that guy pulled out a cell phone and starts talking really loudly into the cell phone. And Ricky Gervais says, and I was almost in tears. I said, and that's it. And now he's giving the command. Actually, he's doing it. Now he's gonna blow the bomb. And so the just because the fear that was created beforehand, and the images and the faces that we associated with certain kinds of behavior. Even the most liberal minds and mind with a good sense of humor got really confused, and that is how perception works. Perception is not this neutral camera that would have just looked, it's a man with a turban and a beard, and he's talking on a cell phone. It's not a neutral. Perception of what is happening. It's always is loaded from the very beginning with our own preconceptions, with our own prejudice, with our fears, with our longings, with our desires. Everything that is these stirrings that we have in ourselves the whole time. The body, the feelings, thoughts, and our tendencies influence these perceptions. So when the perception arrives in our brain, in that moment we become aware of it. It's already not neutral anymore. And that is a very important thing to understand. Because when we get new concepts into our head, like maybe the new concept for some people of Buddhism, what is Buddhism? What is he defines suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Craving. Craving is the cause of suffering. Okay, so I have to get rid of craving. So I saw that a lot in people, actually, this effort then try not to crave things anymore, and that meant cutting down on things. I shouldn't crave family. I shouldn't be attached. Attachment was a big thing. Craving and attachment always going together. So I shouldn't be attached to my wife, shouldn't be attached to my children, shouldn't be attached to tea and coffee, smoking, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and whatever. Is basically this trying to be something that you or trying to change your feeling and your perception just by this thought that you understood something. It's just, the Buddha said craving is the cause of suffering, so I'm a Buddhist, I'm going to eradicate the cause of suffering by not craving anymore. So I try to reduce craving. That is not how it works. So we should have investigated further. How does that work, this process of the eradication of suffering? He gives us the Eightfold Path. He gives us generosity and sila in the beginning. So the whole process doesn't start by trying to get rid of something that we haven't even understood, and we don't even... when we start with Buddhism, if we're honest, I still feel that, why do we even want to get rid of that? Do we really see the danger so much in it? In the monastery, people stop during the Vassa, which is almost over here, our rains retreat now. I remember then monks making all these adhitthana, these commitments. This Vassa, this rains, I'm not gonna drink any coffee. This Vassa, I'm only gonna sleep 6 hours at night. Or what? This Vassa, I'm gonna meditate 8 hours a day. All this little projects, putting all these little projects into your mind, because you believe that you eradicate craving that way. That if it's just if you just don't do it, and if you force yourself, and if your willpower is just strong enough, you get rid of craving, which is a great misconception. And I hope you visit your mind as careful as a good scientist, because we have our own laboratory right here in our body with us and our mind. So this concepts that we apply so liberally often, from something that we read in a book, something that a Kruba Ajahn has done, something that the Buddha has supposed to be done, or some monk has done, or some guru has done, or whatever. Please, if you want to, and it sounds good to you, okay, try it out. But don't make it immediately your reality. Be a scientist. If it tells you basically that you stop coffee for 3 months, and afterwards you crave coffee as much as before, you see that it hasn't reduced your craving. Maybe it has given you still some joy, because you felt that you have the willpower to do it, and that sometimes can give you some joy. This sort of, we feel a bit more in control of what is happening to us. Meditated that amount of time, and I wanted to meditate, and I did it, and it's almost like winning a gold medal in the Olympics. It's the striving and the pleasure we get out of the if we manage to win, we did exactly what we said we would do, and that can give some joy, and I don't deny that, but it's not reducing the craving for the things. That is the trouble with the process. What reduces craving, you best figure out for yourself. Why is it not a great temptation? Warmth, fire is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Sitting close to it and getting warm, and you heat up your room with it, and you boil your water or whatever, and a very nice medium. Why, with such a beautiful medium, we're not tempted to put our finger into the fire? It's not if we're not into self-harm, and most people are not into pain and self-harm, we don't put our finger into the fire. And that is because we have realized it's painful. If I put my finger into the fire, it's going to be painful. If the mind doesn't see that as clearly as putting your finger into the fire with other desires, it's still gonna go there. As still there is, if there's that promise of happiness or that memory of happiness in that direction, the mind is gonna go there. And it's not just something we can convince our mind of. We can try to lie to ourselves or whatnot. Oh yeah, the Buddhist path, and it's so pure, and it leads to so much happiness, and the Buddhists, they are all so nice. And I mean, maybe it works sometime actually, but when we come back to reality, we see some Buddhists are nice, some Buddhists are assholes, some Christians are nice, some Christians are assholes, and Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus, and it's all the same. And the Buddhists, they don't have to be so much wiser than the other guys. It's just not the case. From my personal scientific study, it's not the case. There are Buddhists, in my opinion, that have such an incredibly strong wrong view. The Buddha promised a certain thing, and for me that is why I was interested in it. Was, if you walk this path, if you walk in that direction, if you practice the things I'm telling you about here, if you watch the processes under the light I'm shining on them, it only leads into one direction, to less and less and less and less and less suffering. That is the promise that the Buddha makes. And if that is not the case, it cannot be what the Buddha prescribed, or he didn't prescribe it in a way that you can deal with it, or you understand it, and it might not be the right thing for you. You need some other medicine. But if that people call that the path, walking the path of the Buddha, and they get more miserable, they get more angry, they get more aggressive, or they even stay as aggressive as they were before, and they stay as miserable as they were before, and they stay as unpleasant as they were before, and you see they just suffer as before. It's not working. That's like doing the same scientific experiment over and over again and expecting different results. That's what how Einstein defined insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So often under that perception that I have to reduce my craving, I have to reduce my attachments, doing all these external things and trying often in a harmful, in an unkind way to convince the mind that there's danger in that direction. As I have never seen good results, not in myself and not in other people. Trying that way. This is is coloring the perception in a way where the mind just gets negative. We have to realize the mind is looking for happiness. It's something that we can't change. It's looking for happiness. If we just give it salty water the whole time, that is dangerous, and that is no fun, and that is leading to attachment. And Buddhism can become something so dark and so horrible, and people can become so miserable with the Buddha's teaching. And it's so sad, because I mean, if you imagine a Buddha, somebody who has escaped that lot of suffering, who can see from a perspective of non-suffering, I think you have an incredible amount of compassion for the people who haven't seen the happiness that you have reached there. You just see them living in that delusional perception, and it's not necessary, and there's a way out of it. So the only thing you are left to do is to try your best to help as many people as you can to get out of it. That's how I see a Buddha. And not somebody who's sitting up there on his throne and basically, you should do this and stop craving, and is giving you all this advice that makes you more and more miserable. How is that possible? That is not a Buddha. So he didn't prescribe that way. He said, try to find some delight in generosity first. See if you find joy in generosity. And I don't mean putting money in the donation box. I mean really this generosity of spirit. This generosity of waking up in the morning and realizing, what mind state am I in? Where is my perception here? Am I grumpy already? Am I still tired? Am I full of anxiety already? Where are my thoughts going? We call that mindfulness, awareness, this knowing where you are. Like in a room where you are, and in a place where you're walking, that you don't step over things. You from the as early as you, each and every time, as early as you remember, going back to that thing. Where is my mind here? Where is it? Because after a while we realize this perception here is so colored through our own moods. If I have a stomach ache, my talk is going to be completely different from if I don't have a stomach ache, if I slept bad, what people I came in contact with before. There's so many factors involved in this perception that I have in each and every moment. And to be aware of where is that going, that perception is that, and the Buddha, that's where the Buddha distinguishes very clearly, which is leading into a direction of the mind that is going to lead to more suffering in the future, or that is going to lead to less suffering in the future. And for that we have meditation. We have this beautiful indicator when we develop a little bit of peace in the mind. If we have that little bit of peace in the mind, just maybe a minute or two in the morning, just a few breaths, and just see where you are. And you remember time when you did some meditation, and it was just maybe for a few seconds or minutes, it was just totally all right there. And why was it all right? Because there was no anxiety, there was no anger, there was no wanting, there was nothing that pushed them and pulled the mind around the whole time. And that gives us a perspective, like a measurement, not a judgment, but a measurement for where the mind is. And then maybe we see in the morning, wow, I'm in a terrible mood this morning. What can I do for you, mind? Have a cup of coffee, or do something nice. And then it's not about be restrained and be you shouldn't get attached to anything or whatnot. No. If the mind is not our friend, we're going to be in big trouble, and we're not going to convince the mind of that this direction of try not to want something is a direction that is pleasant, because it isn't. It is that knowledge in the moment that you don't need something, which can be very pleasant. And I hope you get that from time to time. And I hope you sit down from time to time, if it's just a few minutes. There's moments where you sit down, and I hope you're in a good mind state. Hope you're happy enough. And then maybe just tell your mind for a few minutes just to sit down. Just enjoy. Don't have to do anything, mind. And if it's pleasant enough, then you stay in the present moment. Because thoughts are always in the past. The thoughts are always an interpretation of something that happened a few milliseconds or seconds before. Or a few weeks or years or whatever. This being in the present moment with what really is good enough already to stop that process of thought. If the mind is happy with just breathing in and out for a few seconds, for a few minutes, there's a feel to that. If there's enough kindness, there's this feel of what the Buddha was pointing to. This is not trying to convince the mind that you don't want something. It's basically the mind looking and seeing something beautiful there. Seeing some safety there, because that is the place without fear. Where the fear, if they come from thoughts. Without thoughts, this fear, this anxiety is not even possible. Where is this craving coming from? Again, from thoughts, from imagining things, from something we've seen in the advertisements or whatnot, and it pops up again into our mind, or something that we read in a book or heard from somebody else, or something we remember from our own life. But it's never really that what is happening in that moment. And if there's this, with a little bit of training to appreciate longer and longer periods in this present moment where the mind is just not inclined to look for anything else. It's not because I tell the mind, no mind, I'm a Buddhist and we shouldn't crave and now stay here in the present moment. No, it's this enough happiness and kindness you bring into your sitting down already. It's just like, oh mind, no, you don't have to do anything. Just for 5 minutes, you don't have to do anything. You can just sit here and see what's happening when we take our fingers off the steering wheel. And that has if that is done correctly, that should have a taste to it. It has a little bit of this taste of freedom already. Little bit of this taste where the Buddha was pointing to. This freedom of desire, the freedom from the 5 hindrances, wanting, the not wanting, the doubt. So, seeing that perception is constantly influenced by our moods, by the outside world, we find a way to deal with this perceptions in a more skillful manner, hopefully every day than we did the day before. They're seeing just clearly, oh, okay, there's anger coming up. Seeing the cause of anger sometimes helps. It's usually always from some sort of craving. This, when the last person in front of me takes the last slice of pizza, disappointment, anger, why should he get the last slice? Why do I always miss out on the pizza? So there is no decision to be made. Do I blame the monk in front of me because he likes pizza as well? Do I blame myself because I'm still craving pizza? Or do I have the opportunity to step a little bit back and see, there's suffering now? Not because he took that slice of pizza. Suffering is there because You would have liked that slice of pizza. Ah, yeah, that's correct. So, how much happiness would that slice of pizza give you? It would give you that amount of happiness. Yum, 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 yum. Gone. That is the amount of happiness. Huh? Sounds very simple. And I mean, yeah, a slice of pizza, who cares? But I don't know what is important in your life. Huh? Maybe somebody watches a different show on television and you have to watch the same show and you wish to watch something else. Huh? So, how much happiness would have the other show given you? Huh? You will never know because you couldn't watch your show. You know, but the often it's so out of proportion, actually, the amount of disquiet that comes up in our own mind, and the pleasure we would really get out of fulfilling that desire. So instead of blaming, it's just very interesting to take a little bit of a scientific stance. Huh? And obviously, the stronger the desire is, the less we are able to watch clearly what is going on. And that is just the way it is. That's the nature of desire. Huh? I mean, the Buddha tells a story with the I don't quite get it together anymore. So it's a story from the suttas as well, but it's just imagining a person walking down the street, and he sees that woman passing by, and then the woman walks by, and it's sort of, yeah, maybe he thinks a pretty woman or not so pretty woman or whatever. He hardly recognizes, hardly acknowledges her presence or whatever. Is not interested. Then imagine a person who just lost their lover, and basically his or her ex-lover walks by. And so basically he's in a sort of neutral mood, and your ex-lover walks across the street, and all these emotions well up in you again. This loss, or maybe anger, or whatever it is. It's not just a woman walking by anymore, and this neutral, relatively neutral recognition is a strong emotions. And I mean, if you had if you're really angry about the breakup, you want to shout, and if you're maybe more completely sad, you really go back into your depression again, or whatever. But it's the same thing that happened. Is a woman walking down the street. Huh? Is that was connected, that was connected to that image, to that memory, that brings up this incredibly strong emotion. Huh? And then obviously we cannot just say, oh, stop emotion, I don't want you, basically go away, and then it goes away. That is not how it works. Huh? Everybody who has strong emotions, experienced strong emotions, knows that that's just not the way it is. Huh? So there's that connection always between the how attached are we to something, and how strong the reaction is when that something is separated from us. And if it's too strong, we cannot watch it anymore. Then we just react, and we're going to suffer. But with the smaller things in our day-to-day life, where the emotions are not that strong, we can be the scientists, we can be the Buddhist scientists and watch what is the mind doing. Huh? And instead of judging it and nudging it always into certain directions, what it should do and shouldn't do, we just have that kind watcher in the background and see, oh, okay, getting angry about that. getting disappointed with this. And then as long as we can watch clearly, we hardly ever have to do anything about it. Which is not necessarily true. I think we can we can watch it clearly, and we still want to do something about that. And I mean, that was what my last talk was about. That there is an outside world, or we perceive an outside world, and it's important that that outside world doesn't become too unpleasant for us, actually, to give us even a chance to practice. So we are also responsible, obviously, of how we interact with this outside world, and that's the way we change our perception again. And so it's always this interaction between our own minds and the minds of others, and the natural phenomena that go on out there. But the cooler or the more circumspect, the more aware we are about the mind in its particular mood and the direction it's about to take, the more we can avoid leading the mind into more and more suffering. And that doesn't come from things we just want to stop and things we just want to achieve. It just comes from that awareness. Where is the mind at right now, and where is the mind going with this sorts of thoughts and with that kind of thoughts? Is that guy a terrorist over there in the passenger seat, and I should now do my best to subdue him? Or is he not a terrorist, actually, and I don't have to do anything? So how much can I trust this perception? I mean, as a Buddhist, I think we're the general direction can be very nice for most of us. I remember these statues in Afghanistan, the Buddhist statues in Afghanistan. You remember that? And you had these Taliban fighters, and if you give a stupid person a big gun, really stupid things can happen, actually. What they did is they had their bazookas, so their rocket-propelled grenade launchers, and they fired the rockets at these statues that were well, I don't know how many hundreds of years old, actually, and big and intricate, and many people would say beautiful. So you had an idiot with a bazooka destroying this statue. I mean, I think the beautiful thing is in Buddhism, with a proper understanding, would be for me that is, I don't have to hate that person. I don't have to revenge. He doesn't commit sacrilege with my God or whatnot. It was never more than that statue. What my thoughts were just, I imagined how many hours people put into it. Just these people working on these statues for such a long time to make it beautiful, and then just one guy with the right gun, or two or three, and can just blow it all to pieces. And so, what can you do? Perception. Perception from those guys was actually there's something that shouldn't be here. It's against our religion or whatever they thought. Or they just wanted to destroy something. I don't know. So this this not reacting in Buddhism and not reacting with violence and aggression into response of something which is wrong. It's obviously wrong that the Taliban guys exploded these statues, but to do something about that, especially do something in a violent way about it, there's nothing in Buddhism that can support you in that direction. I mean, that for me is a beautiful thing in the understanding the Buddhist teaching. There is no justification for that revenge and violence. But there seems to be a lot of justification for people doing violence to themselves in their own minds. This not understanding how to lead the mind into a place where it tastes something sweeter, where it tastes something that is with the right energy of the mind. It is going to draw the mind away from these five senses. It's drawing the mind away from wanting to see beautiful things, wanting to hear beautiful sounds, wanting to feel beautiful touches with the body, wanting to smell beautiful smells, and so on. It's just because there's something in the mind that is so reacting so much to that beauty that experiences. It cannot look anywhere else. It's too what is the word? Too all-encompassing. That is where meditation makes these steps, where the mind realizes something, whether these stepping stones that the Buddha described, where it sees something that is outside of this conditioning of wanting and not wanting. It's just there, and it's exactly the opposite. It's because the mind has stopped wanting. It has exactly what it wants. But how to get there is never through just trying to convince the mind of something. Be harsh with your mind, and not even if you're very consequent in your mind. I don't think these are factors. I think the factor is that the mind, on the way, on this Buddhist path, the mind finds something that is just more beautiful, more attractive. And that's how the mind wants to stay with the teaching as well. If that is a path where it becomes lighter for you, where it becomes safer, where you just have the feeling you are walking up out of the clouds, and the view gets better up here. Then you don't need anybody else to tell you you're on the right path or the wrong path, and you should do this and you should do that. Basically, because you're your own scientist. You have your own scientific instruments with you the whole time. You have your own scientific environment with you the whole time, and you watch. And you watch, and what is leading into that direction and what is leading into the other direction. And that's all we have to do. And the beautiful thing is that the Buddha described the way pointers for us already. There are indicators we can look for. Is it getting more peaceful? Is it getting more independent? Is greed, hatred, delusion, are they diminishing? Is it getting easier? Does it feel lighter? Is in the meditation, is it going somewhere where you feel more and more comfortable? And obviously that is not a progression that can just be day by day by day by day and is just getting better and better and better. Nothing works like that. Huh? The mind is a wobbly thing and it goes a little bit up and down, but this path, this line in the middle between the up and downs, that should go up and up and up, and the higher the ups should be higher up, and the lows should be not as low as before after a while. And if not, investigate. Always investigate very clearly. What are you doing? What do you believe in? What concepts do you use? How are you treating yourself in your own mind? Are you a dictator up there in your own head? Are you a control freak? How can I make that kinder? How I can make my mind something that trusts me? How do I trust other people? Do I trust other people who shout at me? Do I trust other people who are obviously trying to be mean to me or push me somewhere where I don't want to go? No, I don't. Why should I trust a mind like that? Why should I trust my own mind if it's doing the same thing that I don't want other people to do to me? So becoming aware of that sometimes can be old patterns that go on and on there. And seeing that the whole perception, this whole thing that we call the world, is filtered through this mind. If we perceive the world as an awful place or a beautiful place or a place of danger, this is always filtered through this perception, and this perception is a very fragile and a very manipulated thing, and it doesn't see clearly. It always gonna be the eye is always gonna see not a picture out there in the world. The eye is always gonna be the seer that wants to see. It's gonna block out the things that it doesn't want, and it's gonna fill in the things that things that are supposed to be there. And so it is with everything else. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you treat your mind a little bit more like a interested science experiment. Keep up a little bit of humor and have fun with your meditation. And if you have more time now still because of the coronavirus, you might have something to do. Have a good watch of your mind and see where it's going. All the best, and until next time, bye-bye.
Yeah, there are a few questions, Bhante?
Oh yeah, questions as well. Okay, sure.
Would you like to answer that?
Yeah. Sure.
First question. Isn't wanting to avoid craving a form of aversion or desire in itself?
Is trying to avoid craving a form of desire in itself?
A form of aversion or desire in itself.
Aversion or desire in itself. Absolutely. Sure. It is. And it does not necessarily have to be a very wholesome form of desire. I mean, having a certain desire to have a peaceful mind, to become a better person, to be more generous, something like that is. I don't say there is not there is desire that is more wholesome, and then there's desire that is more unwholesome, and we just live in that world. The mind just has to see what desire leads the mind in a possible direction where it doesn't need so much desire anymore. And it's always, if that direction is somewhere where the mind is happier, you will find the happier you are, the less you need from the outside world. So if the mind has a lot of happiness already in itself, it doesn't look so much through the eyes, and it doesn't try to find the beautiful sounds so much, and so on. Because it's more there where it wants to be already. We call it inner happiness. The stronger the inner happiness, the less of that desire there will be. But we always will have that desire until we get that far out of the process, where we get into the real meditations, or not real. I don't want to call it real meditation. Into the real deep meditations, when the five senses fall away. When the five hindrances are overcome, and we can talk another time about that, but that is then that experience of non-desire the first time, which is a completely revolutionary new experience. But desire is there, and making that differentiating very clearly what is wholesome desire that I have to live with, and which direction is just too unwholesome and too much on the shoulders of others. That's where we can put the work. Okay?
Next question. I have recently broken up with my partner. Can you talk more about how to work with those intense emotions? Rather than saying stop crying and being upset and going through all this, which is my approach.
Stop crying! Obviously, when we're having a partner, I remember that very well. I suffered a great deal when there was a breakup with my partner. And I remember that as well, and it was it's a very distressing time, and this is the time for you to be as kind to yourself as you can. Never tell yourself to be brave and don't cry and do this and do what. You listen and you say, mind, what do you need? What is there anything I can do for you right now? How can I make you any happier? Might it help when we go out a little bit in nature? And sometimes you just have to do it, because the trouble with that perception is that everything is filtered through that dark lens now. We don't have that perception anymore that we had before we were dependent on that love story. It's always filtered through that loss of that love now. So it's all in a darker color. Everything we watch is going to be in that darker color. And very important to be aware of that. So don't make any long-term commitments for the future now. It's because the mind is not at its clearest right now. Now is a time you bring up as much kindness as you can in your mind, and whatever helps you, whatever you enjoy, your hobby, your friends, or having that extra piece of chocolate, or I don't know, you gain a few kilos. It doesn't matter actually. Yeah, this is just that is a time of suffering now, and there's nothing we can do about that, because it has the equivalent of the happiness that we had with the partner beforehand, and that is the whole tragedy of that attachment, of getting attached to something. That because when it's gone, it just hurts, and we can not do much about it. The only thing is, what we can do is not adding to it. Have that wisdom and that kindness to see it. It's not, nobody is at fault. It's just people come together and then they separate again. So it doesn't help the mind to find somebody who is at fault, neither yourself nor the partner. It doesn't help if you are nasty to yourself now and try to convince yourself never to make that mistake again. It's just like, just see as clear as you can that is happiness and suffering being together with another person, happiness and suffering. Huh? Now is suffering, but if you're really down, I give you the meditation. This will end for sure. This will end for sure. This will end for sure. Huh? And that is something I can promise you. It will end. If you let it end, it will end. Huh? Takes some time, but every day it's gonna get a little bit better, actually. And sometimes not in a day, actually. Sometimes it gets a bit worse the next day again, but over the weeks it's gonna get better. Especially if you let it and you don't dwell in it. Treat yourself kindly and do a lot of your the things that you enjoyed previously, even if you have a feeling you can't enjoy them right now. Just do it. Okay.
If Bhante knows, when is Ajahn Brahm going to hold Dharma talks again?
He should be in Norway. I don't think they have the restrictions anymore in Perth, do they? No. Huh? I think they can go out again. So if there are no corona restrictions, he should be back after the first full moon in October. And you have to look that up on your calendar yourself. The first Friday after the full moon in October. That is when Ajahn Brahm should be back at Nolamara. But you can always give a call to the monastery as well, actually, and inquire if there's. But it should be like that. And sometimes he even goes 1 week before the Vasa ends to Nolamara. Actually, that happened before as well. And I don't know. I'm out of touch here myself.
That was the last question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you again. Bye-bye.